"Your place smells like retirement and wood rot, uncle." That's what he said. A single sentence that landed like dust on polished wood. Not shouted, not cruel in the way a fist is cruel, but cruel in the way a smile is sharp enough to make a cut and soft enough to make the others laugh. He leaned his elbow on the porch railing I had sanded smooth 3 summers ago, the one I resealed with tung oil so it would last another winter. He knocked his heel on the 3rd step, the one that loosens when the humidity rises, and he said it like he had discovered something clever about me. His friends laughed, the kind of laughter you do when you're not sure if it's funny, but you know the one with money wants it to be. The light from their phones caught the edges of their teeth. I stood there with my coffee cooling in my hand and said nothing, because silence, when chosen, is not weakness. Silence is a saw you set aside until the board stops shifting. He, my nephew, Dylan straightened his expensive jacket and announced, "Come see a real house Sunday. Chef's kitchen, wine wall, bay window you can sit in and pretend you're rich." He laughed again, louder, glancing at his friends for applause. He got it. They piled into his car, the kind you lease when you want to look faster than you are, and roared away. My sister followed, head down, like she wanted to sweep his words back into his mouth with a broom. She glanced at me, mouth sorry, and left too. The porch was quiet again except for the cicadas. The smell of wood after sun, and the faint hum of my porch light, that's all that was left. Inside, I washed the dishes from supper. Hot water, iron smell first, then clear. The sponge was wearing down to yellow foam, but still serviceable. My kitchen is not much to look at, not the kind you post on the internet, but every drawer closes, every hinge knows me. The house and I understand each other because we've grown old together. Every flaw is familiar. Every creak has a story. I set the clean plate on the rack, leaned on the counter, and thought about the word rot. It's what people say when they don't understand how wood ages. Rot isn't what I smell in this house. What I smell is cedar, warmed by sun, holding the memory of my wife leaning out this very window the night a thunderstorm rolled in. Her ring scratched the wood when she gripped the sill too hard. That mark is still there, a memory pressed into the grain. You don't scrub that out. I sat down at the kitchen table with my yellow legal pad, wrote the date at the top, then 4 lines. Inventory. Porch step, 3rd riser, nail creep, north eaver, listen after rain. Water heater, flush, this month. Me. Practice silence. The last line I underlined, twice. Silence is a tool. Pride wants to talk. Dignity waits. On Sunday, I went to Dylan's real house. I carried a polite bottle of wine in one hand and a small tape measure in the other. Not because I planned to use it, but because a man feels steady with a tape measure in his pocket. It reminds him of who he is. Someone who checks, not someone who guesses. The place smelled new, too new, like cedar perfume in a store aisle. The lawn rolled out like a borrowed carpet. The sidewalk dipped already where the soil was soft settling sooner than it should. I noticed, said nothing. Inside, music filled the rooms like staged laughter. Guests leaned on counters polished for the occasion. He greeted me loud, clapping my shoulder. "This is my uncle," he said. "He loves vintage." That got a round of chuckles. I smiled because I do love vintage. Vintage is proof something lasted longer than fashion thought it would. He paraded me past the wine wall, the under-cabinet lighting, the stainless steel stove that still smelled of shipping cardboard. His girlfriend beamed, telling me the mortgage was basically nothing. I nodded. People mistake nodding for agreement. Sometimes it's just patience. At the bay window, he told me to sit and feel rich. I leaned instead, looked down, and saw the first hairline crack in the foundation. A small diagonal line running toward the downspout. Not dangerous yet, but telling. Draft brushed my cheek. I filed it away the way a banker files risk, quietly. "Nice place," I said. And I meant it. It was nice. Nice like a suit, one size too small. Looks good until you sit down. Back at home, I opened the banker's box in my hall closet. The one I hadn't touched since I left the bank. Inside, a city of old business cards. Some men retired, some banks merged. But names still mean doors, if you know which ones to knock on. I wrote 2 lists that night. What I will not do, I will not embarrass him in public. I will not force what law doesn't support. I will not gloat. I will not make my sister choose. What I will do, I will learn the note's path. I will keep my name distant. I will give one fair chance. I will let the envelope speak. I pinned both lists to the fridge with the old ceramic pear magnet my wife bought at a church sale. Chipped at the stem, but it still holds. Like me, days passed. My sister invited me back for pot roast. I know her language. Pot roast means worry. She stirred gravy thick as cement and said, "He's proud, Martin, but he listens to you. Don't hurt him." "I won't," I said. "I'm measuring." She didn't like the sound of that. But measuring is not malice. Measuring is respect for the truth. That week, Dylan dropped by my cellar with a manila envelope. "So you'll stop worrying," he said. Inside was his note. I didn't open it while he was there. Some papers deserve silence. After he left, I read it at the kitchen table. Adjustable rate. First adjustment in 12 months. Margin that bites. Cap high enough to drown him. Escrow optimistic. And tucked in the package, like a snake in the grass. An unused HELOC, ready to strangle him if he got greedy. I copied the terms on my pad. My hand was steady. My jaw was not. That night, I wrote him a letter. Not the letter, just a warning, plain and honest. Ask your lender to show you your worst case payment. Don't touch the HELOC. Don't trust appreciation to solve arithmetic. If you want me there when you call, I will come. If you don't, keep this and read it again when the envelope arrives. I am not saying the sky is falling. I am saying, bring an umbrella. I left it under the iron frog on his porch. That frog can keep secrets. I slept easily that night, because I had done what I said I would, told the truth, once, plainly. The rest, I knew, would not be my words. It would be the envelopes, and envelopes, once sent, always arrive. When you've spent decades in banking, you learn that people fear numbers less than they fear silence. Silence doesn't blink. Silence doesn't offer reassurance. Silence makes the other man explain himself, and explanations are where weakness lives. Dylan thought his world was buoyant mortgage, remodels, dinners with plates too wide for the food. But beneath it, every payment ticked like a clock I'd heard 1,000 times before. Adjustable. Indexed. Margined. Terms that don't knock on the door, they whisper from the corner, waiting until the party music fades. I began where I always begin, with paper. The county clerk's site was a familiar hallway. I typed his parcel number, the one I'd memorized from the deed he showed me, grinning like a boy holding a trophy. Records unfolded in black and gray. Lender name, origination date, trust deed. My pencil scratched on the yellow pad like a heartbeat. Loan type, ARM. First adjustment at 12 months. Index, SOFR. Margin, 3.25. Payment caps like ceiling beams you pray won't sag. And then the little devil in the details, a bundled HELOC, dangling unused like a rope in a barn. He hadn't touched it yet. But men like Dylan, men who laugh at old houses, always touch the rope eventually. I close a site, open another. Public records of liens, judgments, defaults. His name didn't appear. Not yet. A clean slate is just a blank page waiting for ink. I took the long walk to the community library the next day. Computers there are slow, but anonymity is fast. I used gloves on the keyboard not because I needed to, but because old habits die hard. The smell of library carpet, faintly musty, reminded me of study nights with my wife, long ago, when she'd tug my sleeve and whisper the answers I already knew. On the screen, filings from his lender, a regional bank that liked to package young professionals into mortgage-backed bundles. I knew the names of the officers, without even reading. Old colleagues. Some retired, some still grinding coffee at 9 p.m., staring at default curves like weather maps. I jotted contacts. The names alone warmed my memory. A man named Salvatore, he once told me, "Loans are like roofs. Everybody praises them when it's sunny. Nobody listens when you say it'll leak." Another, Denise, who could sniff risk from a single comma in an application. They were still in the game, somewhere. That evening, my sister called. Her voice was soft, thin as the gravy ladle she always overfilled. "Martin, did you talk to him?" I told him once. I said, "Just don't make this worse." She said, "He's proud. Pride doesn't pay the bill." "Neither does punishment," she whispered. Then she hung up before I could say more. I stared at the yellow pad under the ceramic pear magnet. What I will not do? Make her choose. The rule held. But rules bend when others break theirs. Dylan's social media was a ledger written in arrogance. Photos of wine racks, of stone fireplaces. Hashtags about equity, as if the word were a party favor. He made jokes about my house in captions. Number of vintage vibes. He wrote under a picture of his bay window. Friends laughed in comments. Does Uncle Marty still use candles? I scrolled. Not angry measuring. Always measuring. The first call came on a Wednesday. A voice. from the secondary market desk. Neutral tone, but I heard the smile in it. We've got a tape of upcoming notes. Some early stage flags. Midwest, owner-occupied, high DTI. I sip my tea. Send it. That night, I read the file in the glow of the kitchen lamp. Rows and columns addresses, origination dates, delinquency projections. Numbers sang to me like an old hymn. Among them, I recognized the pattern of his loan type. Adjustable, risky margins. His wasn't on the list yet, but I could see the shadow of it coming. I underlined a phrase in the notes, likely to default within 18 months if rates rise. 18 months. I had time. Time is the woodworker's ally. Sand too fast, you ruin the grain. Sand slowly, you find the shine hidden beneath. I drafted the framework of an LLC. Name scribbled on the back of an envelope, Stillwater Street, North Fence Holdings, Second Beam Capital. I smiled at one. Pear Stem LLC, too personal, but it made me laugh. My wife would have teased me for it. You naming companies after fruit now? She'd have said, hair falling over her eyes. I settled on something anonymous, something that would sound like any other faceless holding firm. Nothing that traced back to me, except through patience. I didn't file yet. Filing is commitment. For now, I was only laying out the tools on the bench. At the college workshop, I taught my students how to clamp a cabinet square. Don't rush the joint, I told them. If you lie with the tape, the wood will tell on you later. A young man nodded, though he didn't understand. None of them did. Not yet. But life would teach them, the way interest teaches the borrower who only reads the first line. That weekend, Dylan hosted again. My sister urged me to go. Keep the peace, she said. I went. Walked into a house glowing with lights too bright for the wiring. The air smelled of expensive candles, cinnamon, and cedar. He was in full performance, laughing loud, showing off appliances. When he saw me, he grinned. Uncle Marty, come see how easy digital signing is. No paper, no hassle, whole loan, just a click. I studied his face. He thought he was teaching me something new. He didn't realize I had lived through 3 decades of paper turning into pixels, promises turning into defaults. I put a hand on the counter, felt the stone cool and hollow beneath. Paper or pixels, I said. It still adds up. He laughed, poured wine for his friends. They toasted, glasses raised, their reflections scattered in the polished island surface. I raised nothing, just listened. Later, in the quiet of my house, I pulled out the banker's box again, ran my thumb over the old cards until I found one. A number I hadn't dialed in years. Evening, I said when the voice answered. I'm interested in tracking a note. Owner, occupied, central time zone, adjustable. Timeline, the voice asked. Patient, I said, but not idle. Keys clacked on the other end. A file was opened somewhere, a name flagged, a story beginning to tilt. From that moment, season 2 began to breathe. Paper was moving. Quietly, silently, the way water seeps into wood before anyone sees the stain. And I sat, sipping tea gone cold, with the knowledge that the first crack had already been measured. They used to say at the bank, the note is the house. The house is just decoration. Most people never learn that. They think a house is wood and stone, painted walls and shiny countertops. They think the deed is the crown, sitting on the owner's head. But a mortgage note is the rope tied to the crown. Whoever holds the rope owns the bowing. And I had spent a career holding rope. It began on a Tuesday, the kind of day that carried no weight on its back. Clouds thin as linen. My house smelled of coffee and lemon oil from the floorboards. I set my pencil down on the yellow pad and called the desk again. I'm watching a file, I said. Owner occupied Arkansas M 12-month adjustment. Not delinquent yet, but you know the type. The voice on the other end whistled. Plenty of those right now. What's the address? I gave it. Slowly. Like laying out chess pieces, there was typing. A pause. Then, yeah, we've got it. Performing for now. But the wrist flags are glowing. I could almost see the file on his screen, red bars marching down the margin. Who's servicing it? I asked. He named a servicer I knew well, big enough to look professional, sloppy enough to miss the hairline cracks until water poured through. You interested in picking it up? He asked. Not today, I said, but keep me in the conversation when it moves. You got it. Quiet hands only? Always. I walked out to my porch, leaned against the railing, and watched a squirrel test the 3rd step. Nails worked loose in summer. The step gave a little, then held. Like Dylan's mortgage, I thought of him, smiling in that bay window, glass of wine raised. The future a coin he kept flipping without noticing it was weighted. He didn't know the rope was already shifting hands. At the college shop, I showed my students how to make a mortise cut. The secret, I told them, is patience. Cut too fast, you burn the wood. Cut too slow, you wander offline. Steady hands, no hurry. One boy laughed, said, like dating. The room chuckled. I smiled too, but inside I thought, like revenge. A week later, the desk called back. We've got an offering pool, performing notes mostly. But yours is tagged as watch list. Early stage exposure, adjustable, high DTI. You want eyes on it? I'll review, I said. The file came through that night. I sat at my kitchen table, lamp casting a warm cone over the paper. Outside, rain tapped against the glass like a metronome. The numbers were simple. Loan to value high. Borrower income stretched. Interest set to tick upward like a clock with no mercy. It wasn't failing yet, but it was a man running downhill with his shoelaces untied. I made tea, let it steep until it was too strong, bitter on purpose. Some truths deserve bitterness. The next Sunday, Dylan invited me again. We're putting in a new island, he said. Come see. I went. The new granite gleamed under pendant lights. Friends gathered, voices buzzing about remodels, about vacations, about leveraging equity. He clapped me on the shoulder. Uncle, what do you think? I laid my hand flat on the cold stone. Heavy, I said. Everything sits on something else. Make sure the something else can carry. He laughed. Always with the metaphors. I long. But metaphors are just truth translated for people who don't like numbers. That night, I wrote another line on my pad. Don't buy the house. Buy the debt, because houses rot. Deeds can lie. But debt always tells the truth. Setting up the LLC was easy. Years of reading incorporation papers had taught me the rhythm. I picked a name that sounded as bland as a beige wall. North Fence Holdings. No hint of family, no scent of fruit, nothing a curious nephew could trace. Just another shell in a sea of shells. I paid the fee online, printed the confirmation, and filed the paper in a drawer labeled Projects. The company was just a vessel. What mattered was what it could carry. The desk called again. Pool's being carved. Yours might land in the next tranche. I'll be there, I said. My voice didn't shake. I learned long ago to keep the hand steady when you cut into oak. In the meantime, Dylan posted photos. Him at a bar, him at the gym, him in his new living room with the stone wall glowing. The caption read, Equity party only way is up. I scrolled, nodded. Equity parties are fun until the music stops. My sister stopped by with pie. She placed it on my counter like an offering. He's happy, Martin. Don't ruin it. I poured coffee. Happiness built on terms is fragile. She frowned. You sound like you're planning something. I'm listening, I said. That's all. Listening doesn't hurt, she said. Neither does measuring, I answered. She didn't reply. She cut a slice of pie, left the rest, and kissed my cheek. Her silence was worry-shaped into love. 2 months later, the file shifted. The desk called. Notes available. Non-performing yet? Not officially. But it's trending. Servicer wants it off their books before the first adjustment. You want it? I'll take it, I said. The price was less than the cost of a new truck. Amazing what pride sells for. I signed through my LLC. No fanfare, no trumpets, just a wire transfer, a scanned agreement, and suddenly the rope was in my hands. That night, I walked my block under the porch lights. Leaves crunched underfoot, the air smelled of wood smoke. Neighbors nodded, unaware that a small shift had occurred in the world. Dylan still owned his house, legally. He still raised glasses in his bay window. But beneath it all, every payment now flowed toward me, through the servicer, wrapped in the quiet anonymity of North Fence Holdings. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I sat at my table, poured tea, and wrote one line on the pad. The house is mine. He just doesn't know it yet. From then on, every statement he received, every late fee that might someday arrive, would whisper my presence. Not my name, never my name, but my patience. And patience, I've found, is the sharpest tool in the box. They say time keeps its own books. Every tick of the clock is an entry in the ledger. For Dylan, the first entries were light just pennies in the margin, late fees no larger than a forgotten lunch bill. But clocks don't stop, and pennies, given time, know how to march. I didn't need to push. I only needed to listen. It began with the first envelope. White, ordinary, with the servicer's logo printed in blue. He waved it away, standing in his driveway with friends, beer in hand. Just a clerical thing, he told them. They always mess something up. He laughed, crumpled it, tossed it into the recycling bin without opening it. His friends laughed too. That's how bravado works. You hand it out like drinks, and people take it to avoid thirst. I watched from across the street. Not hidden, just present. He didn't notice me. People rarely notice the man who isn't speaking. Inside my house, I wrote on my yellow pad, letter 1 ignored. Clock ticking. The handwriting was steady, the lines straight. My wife used to say my lists looked like court testimony. I never argued. In truth, every list is a testimony evidence against yourself, if no one else. Weeks passed. The second envelope arrived. This one had more weight. You could tell by the fold paper thicker, the window showing more lines. He opened it, frowning now. His girlfriend leaned over his shoulder. He waved her off. Escrow issue, he said. They'll fix it. Just numbers on a page. But numbers on a page are the truest thing in the world. They don't laugh. They don't soften. They don't apologize. I saw the way his girlfriend's smile thinned. She excused herself, went inside. Later, I noticed she stopped posting photos of him. The crowd always knows when the music falters. My sister called me. Martin, he's asking questions. About escrow. About taxes. I don't understand half of it. Did you tell him to call me? He won't, she whispered. He says you'll just gloat. I don't gloat, I said. You measure, she replied. That's worse. I didn't answer. She was right, in her way. Measuring is worse because it means I already know how the story ends. At the college, I showed my class how to repair a split dowel. The secret, I said, is not glue. Glue is temporary. The secret is pressure, applied evenly, long enough. Pressure teaches wood to remember its shape. One student asked, what if it doesn't hold? Then it was never a joint, I said. They wrote it down. None of them knew they were learning more than carpentry. The third envelope came with bold letters. Notice of default, preliminary. He didn't open it outside this time. He took it in, shut the door. But walls don't muffle that kind of paper. It seeps into the wood, into the wiring, into the way light falls through a window. Neighbors began to whisper. Not cruelly, just curious, the way people always are when someone stumbles. They waved less when he drove by. Friends stopped parking in his driveway, started meeting elsewhere. The crowd had taken its measure. My sister showed up at my door one evening. She had tears in her eyes, pie again in her hands. He asked me for a loan, she said. And? I don't have it, she whispered. You know that. My pension barely keeps me. But Martin, he's my son. I poured her coffee, set it gently on the table. You can't throw water on a sinking ship, I said. It only goes down faster. She shook her head. How can you be so cold? I'm not cold, I said. I'm patient. Patience looks like ice to people who rush. She didn't finish her coffee. She left the pie. I walked the block that night. The air smelled of rain, the sidewalks dark with moisture. My house hummed softly the boiler's cough, the creak of a joist. Familiar sounds. Dylan's house across the way stood lit but tense, like a man holding his breath. I thought of my wife, her photo by the window, hair caught in a gust, eyes bright. Don't hurry, she used to say. The world hurries enough without you joining. I whispered to her picture. The world is hurrying him now. The fourth envelope came by certified mail. The courier knocked. Dylan answered, face pale, hair uncombed. He signed, shut the door quickly. I knew that sound, the heavy silence that follows a knock like that. It's the silence of realization. The clock had caught him. I called the servicer. My voice was calm, the way you speak when asking the time of day. Files in motion, the agent said. Auction date pending. You're the note holder, so you'll be notified. Thank you, I said. Simple as that. Paper moves faster than people think. Dylan tried to fight. I heard him on the phone, pacing his yard, voice raised. It's a mistake. It's a timing issue. I'll catch up. But mistakes compound. Timing issues are just numbers refusing to lie. I wrote on my pad, clock louder, crowd thinning, offer once. At the college, I told my class, wood teaches humility. You can't argue with grain. You can only work with it or against it. Work against it, and it splits. Always. They nodded. Some understood, some didn't. But the truth doesn't wait for comprehension. One evening, Dylan came to my porch. First time since his joke about rot. His face was drawn, his shirt untucked. He leaned against the railing I had sanded, eyes darting like a boy caught in a lie. Uncle, he said, can I borrow? Just short term. It's a mix-up. I looked at him, long and level. It's not a mix-up. It's arithmetic. He flushed. So, you won't help? I already did, I said. I warned you. His jaw tightened. You're enjoying this. No, I said softly. Enjoyment is noise. This is silence. He cursed, turned, and walked away. The step creaked under his weight. Nails work loose in summer. The auction date was posted. Small print, public record, no drama. Just a line in a ledger. I showed up, cashier's check in hand, no expression on my face. The room smelled of old coffee and paper. A few bidders sat scattered, eyes scanning lists. When Dylan's address was called, I raised my hand once. No one challenged. Why would they? A house on the brink is a rope already frayed. The gavel tapped. The file stamped. The rope, officially, was mine. I didn't drive past his house that night. Didn't need to. Some moments don't require witness. Instead, I sat at my table, lit a candle, and wrote one final line for season 4. The clock has finished. The crowd has left. Now comes the silence. The letter that matters never announces itself. It doesn't arrive gilded or screaming. It comes disguised as ordinary. White envelope, blue logo, plastic window sweating your name. On a Tuesday with thin sunlight, a courier crossed Dylan's lawn, knocked once, and left the weight in his hand. I watched from my porch, coffee cooling in my palm, cedar warm at my back. He stood in the doorway like a man placing his palm on a stove to prove it isn't hot. He turned the envelope, frowned at the certified sticker, and slid a thumb under the flap. Paper rasped. Somewhere a neighbor's wind chimes said nothing useful. We regret to inform you, he read, lips moving. His posture changed by a half-inch. You only notice halves when you've measured things for a lifetime. His face went slack in that particular way people get when the future revises itself without asking permission. He backed into the house. The door shut. The quiet was thick enough to butter. I didn't move. The porch light hummed, a long, familiar note. Inside his envelope were 3 things: the servicer's formal notice of sale, the record of trustee transfer, and a letter introducing the new owner. North Fence Holdings, LLC. Clean font. Crisp margins. A phone number for the property manager. A line in small print that says everything. Please direct rent and occupancy questions to the agent of record. I have always admired letters that do not apologize for facts. At the county building earlier that morning, the clerk's office smelled of toner and carpet warmed by too many shoes. A woman with a sweater the color of legal pads set the deed under a rubber stamp, lifted it like a gavel that can only say yes, and pressed. The thump went up my bones. She slid the paper back across the counter with professional calm. Recorded, she said. Thank you, I answered. She looked at me the way clerks do when they've stamped 1,000 sad days and a handful of good ones. You'd be surprised how many people show up a week late, she said. I would not, I said. Outside, the wind moved the flag like a slow breath. I tucked the certified copy into a plain folder, no labels, and walked to my truck feeling neither triumph nor sorrow. You don't feel when you fit a hinge. You notice that the door swings clean and doesn't bind. By afternoon, the first notice had gone out from the servicer. Formal, toneless, correct. The envelope carried the quiet across town. The rest would be gravity. That evening, my sister called. I could hear the way she was holding her breath between words. He got a letter. Yes. It says the house was sold. Her voice trembled, the way a chair leg trembles when a screw is almost out. It says, a company owns it now. North Fence? That's right. Do you know them? She asked like a person who wants the answer to be a magic trick and not a mirror. I do, I said. The silence after that sentence had a shape. It put its hands on the table and waited. Martin. Just my name, all question. His options are clear, I said softly. He can move on a timeline the law allows, in good order, and keep his dignity. Or he can rent, at a fair market rate, with strict terms, and rebuild quietly. He'll be treated as I treat anyone. You. The word was barely air. Then she found her voice. You? Through the company, I said. No tricks. Everything on paper. My name is in the registry if he looks. I could hear her put a hand over the phone. The old instinct to muffle hard truths. It never works. Truth travels through hands. Why? She whispered. Because we teach people how to treat us, I said. He treated our home like a punchline. He treated arithmetic like fiction. I will treat him like a man who can learn. You could have, she started. I did, I said. Twice. She didn't argue. She's my sister. She knows how often I speak only after I've lifted every floorboard. Will you be kind? She asked at last. I will be consistent, I said. Which is the kindest form of kind. We hung up with the kind of goodbye you say when you're pretending it isn't for the night. I made tea I didn't need. The house exhaled as the boiler caught and settled. I took the folder from the chair, set it on the table, and wrote a checklist, neat and small, the way a man writes when he refuses drama. Notice of sale, mailed. Title, recorded, property manager. Briefed, locks, unchanged pending decision. Offer, draft humane options, rent back, cash for keys. Rule, no gloating. One offer, boundaries clear. I do not savor victory. I savor clarity. The property manager I hired is a woman named Andrea who believes in email timestamps and documented walkthroughs. Her voice on the phone is calm in a way that makes people lower theirs. I sent her a simple instruction. No surprises. Offer 2 paths. Answer all questions. Do not say my name. We met at the property the next morning. The ash tree waved a thin arm in the kind of wind that convinces gutters to misbehave. The stone fireplace inside looked more like a stage prop than a place for fire. Andrea wore a black jacket and carried a clipboard with tabs. He received the notice, she said. He called at 9:15. Angry, then not angry, then apologetic, then angry again. I scheduled an appointment for noon. Good, I said. Let's walk. We did what professionals do. We put on shoe covers. We turned on lights with the back of our knuckles. We photographed corners. We made notes. The home looked like a young man's idea of permanence, expensive, unanchored. I tapped the baseboard in the dining room with my knuckle. The hollow sound told the truth the catalog doesn't print. At noon, he arrived. He saw me and stopped on the threshold, 1 foot in, 1 out, like a boy daring a wave. You, he said. I'm here as a witness, I said. Andrea handles everything. He looked at the clipboard, at the jacket, at the comm. His jaw worked. The room held its breath. Andrea didn't flinch. Mr. Keene, she said, neutral, professional. We represent the new owner, North Fence Holdings, LLC. I can walk you through 2 options. He glanced at me again. I looked at the ash tree through the window. There are moments you step out of the center and let the structure carry. Option 1, Andrea said, is a move-out plan. 45 days. Clean surrender of the premises. We provide a fixed relocation stipend upon inspection, enough to cover a deposit elsewhere and movers. No record of forcible detainer. He blinked. I could feel him doing math. He had never liked math. Option 2, she continued, is a rent back. 12-month lease at market rate. Auto pay on the 1st. Late fee on the 3rd. 2 inspections per year. Compliance with HOA and city ordinances. No subletting. No alterations. Quiet hours observed. Security deposit equal to 1 month's rent. If at the end of 12 months you wish to renew, renewals are evaluated based on history of on-time payments and property condition. Clear? He swallowed. What's market rate? She quoted a number that made his shoulders change shape again. Not cruel, not generous. Correct. That's robbery, he said reflexively. It's the market, she said, not unkindly. You can check comparable listings. He looked at me for rescue. I kept my hands in my pockets, thumbs hooked the way my father's used to. Why are you doing this? He asked, the edges of his voice towing years of entitlement. I thought of the lists on my fridge, the ceramic pair still holding, my wife's ring mark under the window, the boy he had been, tracing letters in my handwriting with a fingertip. I thought of the joke on my porch, the smirks, the way words can rot a man's respect if he leaves them out in weather. I'm not doing anything to you, I said. I'm doing something for the property. You're invited to decide where you fit in that. He seemed to fold a little, not break fold. Paper takes a crease that can be smooth later if you catch it quick. Andrea slid 2 one-page documents onto the island. These explain the options. No fine print. He picked up the rental terms, skimmed, made a face at the inspection clause. He flipped to the move-out plan, read the stipend, recalculated a life he had never amortized. I need time, he said, which people say when the calendar has already made other plans. You have 45 days for option 1, Andrea said. You have 5 for option 2. After that, we proceed to possession under statute. I'll need your decision by Friday at 5. He put the papers down like hot pans. Who is North Fence Holdings? An investment entity, Andrea said, registered in the state. You can look it up. He looked at me again, and in that look was the line between boy and man. He's always tried to find an adult to throw him a rope at the last second. He's never liked learning that the rope and the rule are the same thing. He didn't argue more. He left with the documents. The door clicked like punctuation. Andrea exhaled. He'll look up the registry by tonight, she said. He should, I said. We stood a moment longer in the cool of his expensive kitchen. The stone surface gleamed. I put my palm flat on it. It told me nothing. Stone doesn't talk to the hand unless it's cracked. By 6, my phone buzzed. A message. Not a call. He has always preferred the cowardice of text when pride is hurt. You? And then, on the next line, North Fence is you? I let the phone buzz twice more. Not to punish. To give the moment its shape. Yes, I typed. Registered agent public record. You are not a mystery. Neither am I. 3 dots appeared, vanished, appeared. Then, why didn't you tell me? I did, I wrote. Twice. Once in plain speech. Once in a letter. Another pause, fuller. This is revenge. I set the phone down, made tea, came back. This is consequence, I wrote. You may choose dignity within it. No reply for an hour. When it came, it was 5 words from a child I love inside a man I refuse to carry. I don't know what to do. Read the options, I wrote. Pick one. That night, I walked my block. The sky was a lid fitted tight. Somewhere, someone grilled meat they couldn't taste, over the noise in their head. The ash tree's wound had calloused slightly. That pleased me more than anything that day. Things heal when you stop cutting them. In the morning, he knocked on my door. Early the hour men choose when they want to outrun shame. He stood with bed hair and a sweatshirt I remember buying him in a different decade. Can I come in? Yes. The house smelled like coffee and the clean dust of books. He sat at the table staring at the wood grain like it might draw him a map. I looked up the registry, he said. Your name is there. Yes. Why, North Fence? It's a line that says, past here behave differently, I said. I like fences that tell the truth. He nodded, didn't understand, nodded anyway. His hands made fists and opened again, a slow tide. I can't move in 45 days, he said. I can't. Then rent, I said. Pay on time. Learn the muscle. He lifted his eyes. At that rate? At the rate the neighborhood agreed upon when we weren't looking. He flinched. Truth spoken without sugar has a sound. He tried one more thing. If I rent, it's from you? Like directly from you? From the company, I said. Andrea handles all interaction. You and I will speak as family, not landlord and tenant. That's worse, he said. You'll judge me. I judged you the day you stood on my porch and made our home a joke, I said, not raising my voice, not blinking. You passed. With a low grade. This is extra credit. He laughed once, without humor. The sound of a nail bending against a knot. I'll rent, he said finally. I'll try. Trying is for learning to ride a bike, I said. For this, you will do. Or you will not. Decide and then behave. He nodded again. This time with a weight behind it I had waited years to feel. I need a job with steadier hours, he said, surprising me by skipping the usual speech about raises and bonuses. The payments on time, it means I can't be loud anymore. You were never loud, I said. Your debt was. You were just standing near the speaker. He breathed out through his nose. Okay. We met Andrea at his house at noon. The air carried a thin drizzle. The world looked freshly sanded. He signed the lease with a hand that didn't shake. He set up autopay on his phone, cheeks coloring when he had to ask which button meant confirm. Andrea walked him through the maintenance policy. If the pipe under the sink leaks because he hangs a cleaning caddy from it, he will pay the plumber. If the water heater fails because the universe is bored, the company will pay. The rule is simple. You break, you fix. He lingered over the inspection clause. Twice a year, Andrea said, we give notice. He swallowed. I saw pride find a chair and sit down. We walked the perimeter together, Andrea. Professional. Dylan, stunned. Me, just a man looking where water goes. At the downspout by the bay window, I pointed without touching. Slope's wrong here. Get a splash block. Rain likes to test character. He almost smiled. Almost. You'd say that if we were at the ocean. Especially then, I said. Back inside, he placed the keys on the island, then picked them back up, then put them down again. He stared at them like artifacts in a museum he suddenly understood. Do I get new ones? He asked quietly. Andrea nodded. The locks remain. You're still in possession. This is a tenancy, not a lockout. We don't do theater. He nodded. A lesson landed. On the way out, he stopped at the iron frog by the door, lifted it. There was nothing under it now but dust. He set it back down carefully, as if it mattered that the frog sit square. He left to go to work. Good. Work is how men make smaller mistakes next time. Andrea and I stood under the modest shelter of the porch. and made the kind of small talk paperwork requires. She is good at not asking questions she can answer later. When she left, I stayed a moment longer, listening. Houses talk in rain. They tell you where they're getting it wrong and where they could do better if someone loved them properly. 2 days later, I received our first rent payment notification. The email was plain. Payment received. A line of numbers. A date. No exclamation points. Good. I don't like enthusiasm in accounting. I forwarded it to Andrea. She replied with a single word. Logged. We do not celebrate competence. We let it become the floor. That weekend, my sister knocked on my door with no pie, which in my family is how you tell someone the storm hasn't passed, but you respect the scaffolding. She stood in the kitchen, hands around a mug, looked out the window at the public trees. He's Kieter, she said. Good. He returned something he borrowed last year, she added, baffled. My blender. Debt teaches return. She turned the mug in her hands. You'll forgive him? There's nothing to forgive, I said. There is behavior. There is adjustment. There is time. She nodded, eyes bright and stubborn. You always were a difficult saint, she muttered, which is our family's way of calling someone kind. That night, I walked past his place. The lights were lower. The television was not shouting. The bay window held a man at a table with a notebook open and a pen dull with use. His hand moved slowly. Good. Hands learn. At month's end, Andrea sent a routine note. Inspection scheduled in 60 days. Reminder, exterior maintenance of downspouts required. The letter attached was boring in the way all useful letters are. I read it twice, not because I needed to, but because I like language that stands up straight. On the 1st of the next month, the rent arrived at 3:02 a.m. autopay. Doesn't sleep, but men do. He had said it and forgotten the itch. That pleased me. We allow machines to carry behavior while we practice different muscles. He texted me once that month, late. The ash tree, what do I put on the wound? Nothing, I replied. Stop cutting it. Keep the trimmer away. Let callus form. Check in spring. Okay, he wrote. Then, a minute later, thanks. We hadn't said that word to each other in a while. At the community college, I showed my students how to repair a chair rung. You use a dowel, I said, but you don't just push glue and hope. You cut the shoulder square. You seat it with pressure that tells the joint what shape it remembers. I watched them pinch, press, release. Each of them will forget this, and then remember it 30 years from now fixing a kitchen stool after a child leans too hard. That is how knowledge pays its own rent. On a Sunday, I caught him in his yard on his knees with a level, setting a splash block under the downspout. He didn't see me. I watched the bubble settle between lines. He adjusted the soil with his hands, palms dirty, ring finger clean. He was measuring. Pride will hate it the first 10 times. Dignity loves it always. He stood, brushed his knees, looked up at the sky, not for guidance, but for weather. Progress. A week later, the property manager sent a photo from the inspection. The utility closet now had a cheap leak alarm, the kind that screams like a smoke detector if water misbehaves. He had placed it himself. He captioned the photo to Andrea. Water behaves. She forwarded the email. I smiled into my coffee, the kind of smile you feel in your cheeks and not your teeth. At dinner the next Friday, a few family members gathered in my sister's kitchen. The table smelled of fried onions and hand soap. He arrived late, not loud. Someone, a cousin with a gift for saying the wrong thing, made a joke about landlords and rent boys. The words floated above the table and looked for a landing spot. Dylan didn't laugh. He said, softly, I live in a house I'm learning to respect. The cousin blinked, made a noise, vanished into the refrigerator. My sister looked at her son the way mothers look at men who once were small and now are simply younger than they will be. He waited until dishes were done to come stand by me at the sink. You knew about that downspout before, he said. Months ago. Maybe the first time you came over. Yes. You didn't point it out then. I did, I said. Just not with words you could hear at the time. He rinsed a plate, handed it to me, dried a bowl with care he would have mocked a season ago. I thought you bought the house, he said after a beat. But you didn't. No, I said. I bought the thing beneath it. And then you let me stay. I let you choose to behave. He nodded. We stacked plates. He lined them so the air could do its quiet work. When he left, he touched my shoulder the way a student thanks a teacher in a hallway. No speech. Contact like a sentence fragment. Understood. That night, I wrote a single new line on the yellow pad. Transfer complete. From noise to rule. It is not poetic, it is exact. On the porch, the light hummed. The house breathed. Rain talked to the ash leaves with the softness of a friend who has learned not to give advice. I thought of season 1, the measuring, the inventory, the promise not to gloat. Season 2, the paper trail, the patience. Season 3, the quiet purchase, the rope slipping, gently, into my hand. Season 4, the clock, the crowd thinning, the gavel that doesn't care for applause. Season 5 is not triumph. It is a transfer. Of title, yes. But deeper. Of quiet. The kind that doesn't need to be explained. The kind you feel when a hinge swings smooth and the door closes with the sound carpenters call good. Next month will come. The rent will land at 3:02 a.m. The inspection will find a clean filter because a man set an alarm on his phone and obeyed it. The downspout will carry water away from the foundation like a small river, remembering its bed. My sister will bring pie for no reason. He will ask me, without asking, how to fix the way his voice used to carry too far and say nothing. And I will say by not saying that he is learning the right arithmetic. There is one more season, of course. The lesson without a lecture. Keys on a countertop. A signature under boundaries a man writes for himself. A home that stops pretending to be a crown and returns to being shelter. But for tonight, I set the ceramic pair back on the list. It wobbles just a little, then holds, like we do when we decide to. The keys sit on the island like two small truths. Tenant keys on a plain ring. Owner keys on a heavier one the color of old coins. Metal smells faintly of rain in pockets. He stands a half step back from them. Shoulders set the way a man sets a post when he isn't sure he dug deep enough. The refrigerator hums. The house listens. Andrea flips to the last page of her packet and waits. He won't look at me at first. He studies his own reflection in the black glass of the oven door, then the faint scuff on the floor where a chair leg used to rub. The scuff is thin now. He learned to lift the chair. He learned more than that, and the room knows it. Mr. Keene, Andrea says, voice level, walk through complete. No deficiencies. Security deposit to be returned in full within 5 business days per statute. Paper taps lightly under her pen. We can proceed to the lease termination and handover. He nods. Okay. His voice is calmer than it used to be. A quieter gear found somewhere behind his ribs. Keys? She prompts. He slides the lighter ring forward. The sound is a careful slide, not a clatter. Andrea notes the tag number, checks a box, and places the ring on the folder labeled North Fence Holdings File Closeout. That concludes the tenancy, she says. Then to the heavier ring, her tone unchanged. And now, separate transaction the conveyance. He reaches toward the heavier ring and stops with fingers hovering, like hands over a campfire. He glances at me finally. You don't have to ask my permission, I say. Ask yourself if you can carry what you're picking up. He nods, once. He takes the heavy ring, and it is a different sound when it leaves the counter, a different weight when it disappears into his palm. Andrea slides another set of papers across the island. The ink is crisp. The numbers don't wink or grin. Appraisal, payoff, fees, taxes, the small choreography of any honest sale. At the top, his name on the buyer line, on the seller line. North Fence Holdings, LLC. Not mine. The company's, a fence that did its job without shouting. He signs where tabs bloom like small flags. His hand is steady. Autopay taught him that. So did mornings at a second job, and evenings not spent showing strangers a wine wall. Congratulations, Andrea says, when the last tab is gone. She doesn't say it like a realtor. She says it like a registrar at a community college, handing a student the certificate he earned by waking up early for a year. Hebrea tesot. Thank you. Andrea gathers the papers. Recording set for this afternoon. You'll receive the stamped copy electronically and the originals by mail. She pauses. Inspections end today. Responsibilities change. You know the rest. She nods to both of us, professional to the last, and lets herself out. The door closes softly. The house exhales. It's just us and the keys and the sound of the rain on the downspout that now sends water where water should go. He rubs the edge of the heavier key with his thumb like a man reading a talisman. Why didn't you tell me this could end this way? He asks. Not accusatory. Curious, like a student after class. I did, I say. Just not in words you could hear yet. He looks at the bay window. The foundation crack caught and stitched months ago is an almost invisible seam. I thought you wanted me out, he says. That you wanted an example. I wanted the house to be respected, I say. and I wanted you to learn how to do the respecting. He swallows. The skin at his throat moves like a page turning. I was cruel, he says. On your porch. You were loud, I say. Cruelty is a kind of loudness. I'm sorry. He doesn't rush the word. It arrives like a necessary payment, not a tip. Accepted? I say, because forgiveness is not a ceremony. It's a ledger entry you write clean, and then close the book. He gestures toward the sink. Under it, a cheap leak alarm waits like a dog that hasn't been fed bad habits. I change the filter now, he says, half smiling, before it begs. I know, I say. Andrea's photos had good light. He laughs, embarrassed and gentled. The laugh doesn't bounce off the stone like it used to. It stays home. On the island, tucked under the edge of a placemat, I notice the iron frog from his porch. He's cleaned it. The rust is gone. The curve of its back shines dull like pewter. He sees my glance and picks it up with care. You left a letter under this, he says. I kept the letter. I kept the frog. I don't keep things anymore that don't tell the truth. Then keep that, I say. It tells time, not the hours, the kind that matters. He nods. He sets the frog down on the sill by the bay window, where light finds it without making a fuss. We walk the perimeter one last time together, the way men who fix things have to. The ash tree's wound has calloused into a proud ridge. You were right, he says. Leave it alone. Stop cutting what you want to keep. Quote, most repairs are subtraction, I say. Stop doing the thing that breaks it. We stand under the eave and listen to water behave. The splash block sits at a proper slope. The soil doesn't sulk against the foundation. A year ago, he would have called this boring. Today, he calls it relief. Back inside, he pulls 2 mugs from a cabinet and rinses them the way a person does when he's learned not to hide his own fingerprint. He pours coffee he brewed too strong and adds water without apologizing for the first mistake. You sold to me at the appraisal, he says, testing the temperature of the room. At the appraisal, I say, no discount, no penalty. Dignity is full price. He nods. I'd have resented a discount, he admits. I'd have turned it into a joke I told to hide a debt I owed. You did that already, I say. We're not doing reruns. He smiles, smaller. I changed the car, he says, almost proud. Turned in the lease. Bought a truck with scratches that tell a story. Good, I say. Tools ride better in a bed that doesn't flinch. He sets my mug in front of me and stays standing, palms on the counter the way men steady themselves when a lot of noise has suddenly stopped. Mom's cooking Sunday, he says. She wants you there. I know. She told me to bring peaches. He nods at the yellow legal pad sticking from my jacket pocket. You still write lists? I still measure, I say. What's on today's? He asks, like he's ready to learn the grammar of it. I take the pad out and write with the pencil my teeth have chewed down to honesty. Old house. Check porch light set screw. Call Andrea. Confirm recording. Sister. Peaches. Dylan. Congratulate without speech. I slide it to him. He reads. Huffs out a laugh at the last line. And then, quiet again, taps the pencil against the paper. Can I add one? I nod. He writes, a little too hard. Letters darker than mine. Remember that rent is a muscle. He hands the pad back like a contract he plans to keep. Even owning, he says, I still have to pay. To the place, to the quiet, to the future me who doesn't want to be loud again. That's what ownership is, I say. Tenancy with longer responsibilities. He looks around the room, stone, wood, glass, air, and it looks back. The house isn't a crown anymore. It's shelter. It's work. It's a set of agreements he can name now. At the bay window, he reaches down and presses a finger to the seam in the foundation patch. I'll keep an eye on this when it freezes, he says. No pretending. No pretending, I agree. He takes a breath that moves everything a little higher. Can I ask about your place? He means my old house, the one he called rot and retirement. You can come by after peaches, I say. Bring a screwdriver. The porch light set screw works loose in August. Guh. He smiles a real one with the weight off. I know that smell, he says. Your porch light hum. You didn't before, I say. He looks like he might say thank you again, and I don't need to hear it a second time. I put my palm on the island. Take care of the heavy ring, I say. It's not heavier because it's metal. It's heavier because you can't set it down and pretend it isn't yours. He pockets the keys. They disappear, but their shape stays in the room. We lock the door on our way out because that's what you do when you respect a boundary, even if you're coming right back. On the walk, he doesn't talk about money. He points out a hairline in the sidewalk 2 houses down and says, they should have broomed that different, huh? I grunt. which in my vocabulary is a compliment. He crosses to his car no longer leased, no longer shiny in the wrong ways, and pauses. You were hard on me, he says. It felt like punishment. It wasn't. It was a fence, I say. It kept you from falling off your own property. He nods, opens the door, thinks of something, closes it again, and comes back 2 steps. You still teach? He asks. I do, I say. Think they'd let a 30-year-old who learned late sit in the back? He asks, shoving his hands in his jacket like a boy about to try out for a team he used to make fun of. They would, I say. But you won't sit in the back. Oh, he laughs, redness in his ears from the cold and the idea. I'll text you, he says. And this time the 3 dots won't mean delay. They'll mean a calendar entry. He drives off with the soft rattle of a useful truck. The ash tree shows its healed side to the light. The downspout does not complain. The iron frog keeps time on the sill like a small priest. I walk home. The air tastes like wet leaves and steel. My porch light hums the way it has hummed since the year my wife and I saved it from moths, by turning it off and watching the sky instead. Inside, the house breathes. Polite cough from the boiler. Floorboard shrug at the threshold. I set the peaches list beside the ceramic pear, chip at the stem catching light like a wink. I take out the yellow pad one last time and add a line beneath the others, small enough to be private, legible enough to be a vow. Lesson given, lesson kept. No lecture. I put the pencil down and run my fingertip along the windowsill where her ring scratched the wood all those storms ago. The mark is shallow, bright with oil and years. It is not rot. It is a story pressed into a house by 2 people who learned to listen to weather and to each other. Across the street, a man with heavier keys and a quieter face steps back into his own doorway, turns off a light he used to leave on, and lets the evening be enough. Silence holds.